In a world where everyone is pulling at your mind, your time, your energy, and your emotions, the greatest freedom you will ever give yourself is the power to detach. Most people don't realize this, but you are controlled the most by the things you cling to, the people you fear losing, the outcomes you obsess over, the situations you try to fix even when they are not yours to fix. And the more you hold on, the more life slips out of your hands. But Buddhism teaches something quietly revolutionary. When you detach, you rise above everything that once owned you. You stop being shaken by people's moods. You stop drowning in problems you can't solve. And you stop letting situations decide your worth. There is a stronger, freer version of you waiting on the other side of letting go, a version that cannot be manipulated, drained, or controlled. Today, you will learn 7 powerful lessons that will help you detach so deeply that nothing outside you can disturb your inner world again. 1. You suffer the most when you hold on to what is not yours. Most of the suffering you experience in life is not caused by what happens to you, but by what you refuse to let go of. The human mind has a habit of holding tightly to things long after they have served their purpose. You hold on to people who have already checked out emotionally, hoping they will return to who they once were. You hold on to situations that quietly drain your energy day after day simply because you fear change. You hold on to old memories, old disappointments, old expectations, and old versions of yourself, as if clinging to them will somehow bring comfort. But all this clinging does is create inner conflict. It traps you between what is happening and what you wish would happen, and that tension is where the deepest suffering hides. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is attachment, not because attachment is evil, but because everything you attach yourself to eventually changes. Nothing in this world stays the same. People grow apart, jobs evolve, relationships shift, circumstances move on, and even your own heart transforms year after year. Yet the mind tries to freeze life in place. You cling to a person because you want the connection to remain exactly as it was. You cling to a situation because you want the comfort it once provided. You cling to expectations because you want reality to obey your plans. But life does not wait for your permission to change. And when change arrives, your attachment becomes a weapon that turns against you. The truth is gentle but powerful. Nothing that is truly meant for you will ever require you to chase it, force it, or beg for it. Real alignment moves toward you naturally. Real relationships stay without pressure. Real opportunities flow without you breaking yourself to keep them alive. What is meant for you feels peaceful, not heavy. But the more tightly you hold on to things that are slipping away, the more you feel them cutting your hands and wounding your heart. Attachment makes you believe that letting go means losing something important, when in reality, holding on is what keeps you stuck in suffering. When you begin to release what is outside your control, people's choices, life's timing, the direction of events, you create space for peace to return. Your heart starts to breathe again. You realize that letting go is not the same as giving up. It is a form of emotional maturity. It is choosing to protect your mental and spiritual well-being instead of chasing what was never yours. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. It is the moment you stop trying to fix the unfixable and allow life to unfold without resistance. It is the moment you choose to honor your inner peace above your fear of losing. And when you do this, you reclaim something far more valuable than the thing you were holding on to. You reclaim your freedom. You finally understand that peace was available to you the entire time. It was just buried under everything you refused to release. 2. People cannot control you when you stop seeking their approval. One of the biggest reasons people feel controlled, manipulated, or emotionally dependent is because they secretly crave validation. The moment your self-worth depends on someone else's approval, you hand them the keys to your mind. Suddenly, their words can lift you up or break you down. Their silence makes you anxious. Their attention feels like oxygen. Their criticism feels like a wound, and without realizing it, you begin shaping your behavior, your emotions, and sometimes even your identity around what you think will please them. You lose your natural confidence and become someone who constantly adjusts themselves to avoid rejection or disappointment. Buddhism teaches that this need for approval is one of the most subtle attachments because it hides inside good intentions. You want to be liked, respected, valued, appreciated, and there is nothing wrong with that. But when you base your happiness on whether others approve of you, you create a fragile emotional life. People's moods change, their opinions shift, their loyalty is not guaranteed, their expectations evolve, and because they are human, they are inconsistent. So when you tie your inner stability to something unstable, you end up living in constant emotional turbulence. The truth is that people can only control you when you fear losing their acceptance. If someone knows you crave validation, they can manipulate you with silence, guilt, praise, or attention. If someone knows you want to be seen as good, they can twist your kindness into obligation. If someone knows you hate disappointing others, they can push your boundaries until you have none left. Your life becomes a performance, and their opinion becomes the audience you perform for. This drains your spirit because you are always acting, always pretending, always adjusting, never simply being yourself. But the moment you detach from the need for approval, you become unshakable. You begin to see that your value is not in what people think of you, but in who you truly are. Approval becomes pleasant, not necessary. Criticism becomes information, not devastation. Rejection becomes redirection, not a reflection of your worth. You start speaking honestly because you no longer fear losing someone's validation. You start choosing what feels right to your soul rather than what looks acceptable to others. You start living with authenticity instead of performing for acceptance. When you stop seeking validation, something incredible happens. People lose their power to control your emotions. Their praise no longer inflates you. Their disapproval no longer destroys you. Their silence no longer scares you. You become emotionally self-sufficient. You operate from a calm inner center instead of a reactive state. You walk into relationships with confidence rather than fear. And you finally understand that true freedom is not the absence of people, it is the absence of dependence on their approval. This is why monks, spiritual masters, and enlightened teachers walk through the world with such calmness. They are not cold, they are simply free. They don't need people to agree with them, admire them, or validate them to feel whole. They follow their inner truth, and that truth becomes their strength. When you detach from the need to be approved, you finally become the person you were always meant to be, someone grounded, independent, and untouchable by external judgment. 3. Letting go is a skill, and it makes you emotionally untouchable. Most people believe that letting go is something that automatically happens with time, as if the heart slowly forgets and life naturally moves forward on its own. But the truth is far more complex. Letting go is not passive. It is an inner skill, a discipline, a choice you make again and again, until your mind finally understands that peace matters more than clinging to what hurts. You do not wake up one day magically healed from a disappointment, betrayal, or loss. You become healed through the repeated act of releasing what your heart was never meant to imprison. Letting go is difficult because the mind loves attachment. It holds on to familiar pain because it fears the unknown. It holds on to memories because they make the past feel alive. It holds on to people because losing them feels like losing a part of yourself. It even holds on to negative experiences because they provide a strange sense of identity. This is who I am because of what happened to me. But Buddhism teaches that you are not your past, your wounds, or your attachments. You are the awareness behind them. You are the one who observes, feels, and experiences, but you are not meant to be controlled by those experiences. When you begin to practice letting go, you are not just releasing people or situations, you are releasing the emotional grip they have on your inner world. You start recognizing that holding on to something that hurts does not protect you. It only prolongs your suffering. Letting go means accepting that life moves in cycles, that everything has a beginning and an end, and that resisting this natural flow only creates more pain. It is the realization that peace comes not from keeping things the same, but from adapting to the truth of what is. The skill of letting go teaches you emotional independence. When someone says something hurtful, you learn not to internalize it. When circumstances shift unexpectedly, you learn not to fall apart. When relationships fade, you learn not to chase after people who have chosen a different path. You begin to see that not everything deserves a reaction, not everything requires closure, and not everything is worth fighting to keep. Some things are meant to pass through your life, teach you something important, and then leave. Letting go is the process of honoring that lesson without chaining yourself to what is gone. As you master this skill, your emotional landscape becomes calmer. You no longer break under pressure because your stability is not built on the fragile foundation of external circumstances. You stop obsessing over what could have been because you learn to trust the direction life is taking you. You stop clinging to people who drain your energy because you understand that attachment without harmony cannot bring peace. You stop replaying old wounds in your mind because you realize they are not part of your present reality. Every moment you choose release over resistance, you strengthen your inner resilience. Letting go transforms you. You become someone who feels deeply yet remains steady, someone who cares but does not cling, someone who loves but does not lose themselves, someone who experiences life fully without being imprisoned by its changes. People begin to notice that you are no longer reactive, no longer triggered, no longer emotionally dependent on anything outside yourself. You become, in the truest sense, emotionally untouchable. Not because you don't feel, but because you no longer allow your feelings to trap you. Letting go is not forgetting, denying, or suppressing anything. It is the conscious decision to stop carrying emotional weight that was never meant to stay with you. And the more you practice this skill, the more peaceful, grounded, and unshakable you become. This is the inner freedom. Buddhism teaches the freedom that comes when you stop clinging and start flowing with life. For what you control is your power. What you don't control is your peace. One of the most transformative shifts you will ever make in your life is understanding the difference between what is within your control and what is completely beyond it. This simple distinction determines whether your mind lives in constant tension or steady peace. Most suffering comes from trying to control what is not yours, to manage people's feelings, their decisions, their loyalty, their behavior, the outcome of situations, the speed of your progress, the reactions of others, or the timing of life. The more you try to force these things into your desired shape, the more exhausted, anxious, and powerless you become. Buddhism teaches that peace arises not from controlling life, but from aligning yourself with the natural flow of life. The truth is that human beings waste enormous emotional energy trying to change things they never had power over. You replay conversations in your mind, hoping you could have made someone see your worth. You wait for people to apologize, believing their words will give you closure. You try to make someone stay, thinking your effort can fix their heart. You fight the reality of situations, convincing yourself that if you just try a little harder, life will bend to your expectations. But these attempts only lead to frustration because control is an illusion. You cannot change what another human being thinks or feels. You cannot force life to follow the script you wrote in your mind. You cannot freeze circumstances in place or prevent the future from unfolding in its own rhythm. And the tighter your grip becomes, the more life slips away from your grasp. Yet there is something you can control, and this is where your true power lies. You control your responses, your intentions, your mindset, your discipline, your boundaries, your effort, and the meaning you choose to give to your experiences. These are the things that shape your destiny. These are the things that define your character. These are the things that determine the quality of your life. When you stop focusing on the uncontrollable and start pouring your energy into your inner world, you become unstoppable. You stop trying to change people and start choosing who aligns with your peace. You stop trying to predict outcomes and start strengthening your ability to adapt. You stop obsessing over what might happen and start grounding yourself in what you can do right now. Buddhism teaches that surrendering the uncontrollable is not a sign of weakness, it is the beginning of wisdom. It is the moment you step out of emotional chaos and into clarity. When you no longer feel responsible for managing everything outside you, an immense sense of relief washes over your heart. Suddenly, you are not carrying burdens that were never meant for you. You stop taking blame for things you didn't cause. You stop personalizing things that had nothing to do with you. You stop shrinking yourself to meet other people's expectations. You stop fighting situations that life has already closed the door on. And in this letting go, your peace returns. Peace comes from accepting reality as it is, not as your fears or desires want it to be. This acceptance does not mean giving up. It means working intelligently. It means choosing your battles wisely. It means directing your energy where it can actually make a difference. It means recognizing when your effort is helping and when it is harming you. It means understanding when to act and when to step back. Most importantly, it means trusting that life has its own timing, its own wisdom, and its own way of unfolding. This trust liberates you from the constant need to micromanage everything. When you finally accept that some things are not yours to control, your life becomes lighter. You begin to notice how much energy you wasted trying to change things that were never your responsibility. You realize how many sleepless nights, arguments, fears, and emotional breakdowns came from fighting the natural flow of life. And you understand that peace is not something you chase, it is something you create by releasing what disturbs your soul. People lose their power over you when you stop trying to control their reactions. Situations stop overwhelming you when you stop insisting they must unfold in a certain way. The future stops terrifying you when you stop trying to script every detail. The past stops haunting you when you stop trying to rewrite it. You become emotionally unshakable because you no longer place your peace in the hands of things that can shift in an instant. This is the essence of Buddhist detachment. Your power lies in what you can control, and your peace lies in releasing what you cannot. When you master this distinction, life becomes simpler, lighter, and infinitely more peaceful. You stop drowning in chaos and start floating in clarity. You stop reacting to everything and start choosing your responses with wisdom. You stop being controlled by the external world and start living from your inner center. This is how you become free, not by controlling life, but by controlling your relationship with it. 5. Not every emotion deserves a reaction. Detachment teaches you to choose your response. One of the greatest forms of suffering comes from the belief that every emotion you feel must be acted upon, expressed, defended, or justified. Most people move through life like emotional puppets, reacting instantly to whatever the mind produces. If someone insults them, they explode. If someone ignores them, they spiral. If something goes wrong, they panic. If a fear appears, they obey it. If a memory surfaces, they drown in it. Life becomes a never-ending cycle of emotional reactions that drain energy and destroy inner peace. Buddhism teaches that real freedom begins the day you understand that emotions are visitors, not dictators. They come and go like clouds, and you are the sky, vast, open, and far more powerful than any temporary storm. The truth is that emotions are not your enemies. They are signals, alerts, reflections of what is happening inside you. But trouble begins when you believe they are ultimate truths that must be obeyed without question. You are not meant to suppress your emotions, nor are you meant to be controlled by them. Detachment teaches the middle path, the wisdom to observe without becoming overwhelmed. When an emotion rises, detachment allows you to create space between what you feel and how you choose to respond. This space is everything. It is the gap where clarity lives. It is the pause where wisdom grows. It is the moment where you regain control over your inner world. In this space, you begin to realize that not every emotion deserves your action. Anger may rise, but you don't have to speak from it. Fear may appear, but you don't have to run because of it. Sadness may weigh on you, but you don't have to collapse under it. Someone's words may hurt, but you don't have to retaliate or defend yourself in every moment. Detachment gives you emotional choice, and emotional choice is one of the purest forms of power. Imagine how many conflicts could be avoided if people paused before reacting. Imagine how many relationships would survive if responses came from calm truth instead of emotional impulse. Imagine how much peace you would feel if you stopped giving every emotion permission to control your behavior. This is the gift of detachment. It transforms your life from reactive chaos to intentional action. Most emotional suffering comes from taking things personally. Someone's bad mood becomes your anxiety. Someone's silent treatment becomes your overthinking. Someone's criticism becomes your identity. Someone's absence becomes your sense of unworthiness. But when you learn to detach, you begin to understand what Buddhist teachers have always said. Most of the time, what others do has nothing to do with you. People react from their wounds, their fears, their insecurities, their past experiences. Their behavior is a reflection of their inner world, not a reflection of your worth. When you detach, you stop letting every emotional wave pull you into a story that hurts you. Detachment gives you emotional maturity, the ability to stand still even when your feelings want to pull you in different directions. You start becoming the observer of your emotions rather than the prisoner of them. You can say to yourself, "I feel angry, but I don't need to respond with anger." Or, "I feel hurt, but I don't need to seek validation." Or, "I feel anxious, but I don't need to act from fear." This is how you become emotionally untouchable, not by avoiding emotions, but by mastering your relationship with them. As this mastery grows, life begins to feel different. Situations that once triggered you no longer hold the same power. Words that once hurt you lose their sting. People who once manipulated your emotions can no longer control you. Your emotional world becomes calm, steady, and grounded. You stop reacting to life randomly and begin responding with purpose. Not every emotion deserves a reaction, because not every emotion reflects truth. Some emotions reflect old wounds. Some reflect subconscious fears. Some reflect temporary discomfort. Some reflect other people's projections. When you learn to pause, observe, and breathe, you separate what is real from what is temporary. You respond only from truth, not from emotional confusion. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom, the ability to choose your emotional behavior instead of being dragged around by the mind. When you no longer react to everything you feel, you reclaim your power. You become someone who moves with intention, someone who speaks with clarity, someone who acts with wisdom, someone who is not easily shaken by external forces. This is emotional liberation. This is inner strength. This is the quiet power that makes you free from manipulation, free from impulsive decisions, and free from the emotional storms of life. And once you master this, no one, not a person, not a situation, not even your own mind can control you again. 6. When you detach, people's behavior reveals who they truly are. There is a strange truth about life that most people never understand until they experience it. When you finally detach from someone, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you begin to see them with a clarity you never had before. Attachment acts like a fog. It blurs your vision, distorts your judgment, and makes you interpret someone's behavior in the most hopeful or forgiving way possible, even when the reality is hurting you. You excuse disrespect because you fear losing the relationship. You overlook red flags because you desperately want the connection to work. You tolerate inconsistency because you value the person more than you value your own peace. But the moment you detach, the fog begins to lift, and you start to witness the truth that was always there but hidden behind your emotional attachment. Detachment does not mean becoming cold or distant or turning off your humanity. It simply means stepping back far enough to see things as they truly are, rather than how you wish they were. When you detach, you stop projecting your hopes onto someone's behavior. You stop filling in the gaps with excuses. You stop imagining potential where there is only repeated reality. You finally see the difference between how someone makes you feel and how someone actually treats you. This clarity is not painful, it is liberating, because it frees you from illusions that kept you stuck. When you detach, people's behavior begins to speak louder than their words. You notice who only shows up when they need something. You notice who disappears when your life becomes difficult. You notice who benefits from your presence, yet offers nothing in return. You notice who respects your boundaries and who resents them. You notice who values your honesty and who becomes uncomfortable when you stop pleasing them. You notice who treats you with consistency and who only acts out of convenience. Detachment opens your eyes, and once your eyes are open, you can never go back to pretending. One of the greatest illusions created by attachment is the belief that someone's temporary behavior represents their true nature. When you are attached, you cling to the moments when they were kind, supportive, loving, or present. You hold on to memories instead of seeing the pattern that is happening right now. You stay because you hope those moments will return, even if they rarely do. But detachment pulls you out of emotional time travel. It brings you into the present moment, where truth lives. And the truth is always revealed by consistency, not by occasional affection or promises. In Buddhism, there is a teaching that says, what is real does not need force, and what is false cannot survive clarity. When you detach, this teaching becomes alive in your life. Relationships built on mutual respect grow stronger when you detach because your clarity brings balance. You stop overgiving, and the other person has space to show whether they truly value you. Healthy people respond with appreciation, effort, and deeper connection. But relationships built on convenience, manipulation, or emotional dependency begin to crumble under detachment. The moment you step back, the imbalance becomes impossible to hide. The person who relied on your attachment to control you begins to pull away or act resentful because your freedom exposes their intentions. Detachment reveals intentions because you stop moving from emotion and start moving from observation. Instead of asking, "Why did they say this?" you begin asking, "What does their consistent behavior show?" Instead of asking, "How do I make them stay?" you begin asking, "Why do I feel I must convince someone to value me?" Instead of asking, "What if I lose them?" you begin asking, "What am I losing by keeping them in my life?" These questions shift you from emotional survival to emotional empowerment. You begin to recognize that any person who truly belongs in your life will meet you where you are, not only where it benefits them. Another powerful effect of detachment is that it reveals who actually cares about you when you stop trying. When you are attached, you may be the one initiating all conversations, fixing every conflict, apologizing first, or making all the effort. You become the glue that holds everything together. But when you detach, you stop forcing, chasing, or maintaining relationships that are heavy on your heart and light on your soul. And suddenly, the truth becomes visible. Some people stop communicating because they were only present when you carried the relationship. Some become distant because they were only connected to the emotional advantage they gained from you. Others show frustration or anger because your detachment removed their ability to manipulate your feelings. But the ones who truly care will meet your detachment with effort. They will reach out. They will show consistency. They will communicate with honesty. They will prove with actions what words never could. Detachment also reveals your own patterns. You begin to understand why you tolerated disrespect for so long, why you settled for less, why you stayed in situations that drained you, why you ignored your intuition even when it was screaming warnings at you. You realize that attachment was not love, it was fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of not being enough, fear of losing someone you believed you needed. But when you detach, fear loosens its grip. You begin to feel your own strength returning. You start to appreciate your own company. You start to rebuild your self-respect. You finally understand that losing something that was hurting you is not a loss, it is a release. And losing someone who did not truly value you is not a punishment, it is protection. With detachment, you also gain the ability to accept people as they are, instead of forcing them into who you want them to be. When you are attached, you try to fix people, change them, heal them, or pull potential out of them. But detachment teaches you that people show you exactly who they are through their actions, not through your hopes. And once you accept this, you stop trying to reshape anyone's behavior to fit your emotional desires. You stop trying to force compatibility. You stop trying to make excuses for mistreatment. You stop imagining a different version of someone. You simply observe, and from observation comes wisdom. Wisdom to stay, wisdom to leave, wisdom to set boundaries, wisdom to honor your peace. Detachment is one of the highest forms of self-love because it protects your emotional world. It ensures that you no longer abandon yourself to keep others comfortable. It ensures that your worth is not determined by how others treat you. It ensures that your peace is not controlled by someone else's presence or absence. It ensures that you live life with awareness rather than blindness. And perhaps most importantly, it ensures that you never again confuse attachment with love. In the end, detachment is not about removing people from your life. It is about removing your illusions, expectations, and emotional dependency. Once these fall away, you see people clearly not through fear, insecurity, or longing, but through truth. And when truth appears, your life begins to transform. You stop settling. You stop chasing. You stop overgiving. You start choosing yourself. You start honoring your peace. You start experiencing relationships that feel balanced, calm, and respectful. You start attracting people who match your energy rather than drain it. And one day, you realize something profound. Detachment did not push the wrong people away. It simply revealed that they were never aligned with your path. And it did not take the right people from you, it helped them move closer, because only those who truly value your presence will stay when your attachment is gone. 7. Detachment doesn't make you cold, it makes you whole. One of the greatest misunderstandings about detachment is the belief that it turns you into someone cold, distant, emotionless, or uncaring. People assume that if you detach, you stop loving. They think detachment means shutting down your heart, avoiding relationships, or becoming numb to life. But true Buddhist detachment is the opposite. Detachment does not strip you of your humanity, it returns you to it. It does not harden you, it softens you in the right places. It does not make you less loving. It makes your love purer and freer because it is no longer mixed with fear, insecurity, or desperation. Detachment is not about pushing people away. It is about no longer abandoning yourself in order to keep them close. When you are not detached, your emotions become tangled with expectations. You want people to act a certain way, treat you a certain way, respond a certain way, love you a certain way, and when they don't, you suffer. You feel betrayed because they didn't meet the role you imagined for them. You feel disappointed because they didn't behave according to your script. You feel heartbroken because you expected permanence from someone who was only meant to be a temporary chapter. Attachment is not love. It is possession disguised as love. It ties your happiness to the behavior of others, and that creates emotional instability. You start losing yourself in the process of trying to keep others close, even when the relationship is draining you. Detachment dissolves these unhealthy attachments. It frees you from the belief that your peace depends on someone else's actions. It teaches you to love without clinging, to give without expecting, to care without losing the core of who you are. When you detach, you learn to experience people as they truly are, not as your emotional hunger wants them to be. You stop demanding from others what they are not capable of giving. You stop forcing connections that are not mutual. You stop sacrificing your values to be accepted. You stop tolerating disrespect out of fear of loneliness. Detachment brings you back to yourself. It teaches you that you are whole on your own, and that relationships, no matter how beautiful, are additions to your life, not foundations of your worth. One of the most liberating truths detachment reveals is that love becomes deeper when it is not rooted in fear. When you detach, your love is no longer based on, "I need you to make me feel whole." Instead, it becomes, "I choose you because your presence aligns with my peace." This shift transforms the quality of your relationships. There is no more begging for attention, no more overthinking someone's silence, no more trying to decode mixed signals, no more obsessing over outcomes, no more sacrificing your mental and emotional health just to keep someone from leaving. Detachment teaches you that real love cannot be forced, and anything that must be chased is not aligned with your soul. In Buddhism, detachment is a path to inner freedom. It is a state of being where you are fully present, fully engaged, and fully alive, yet not controlled by outcomes. You enjoy without clinging. You love without losing yourself. You dream without fear of failure. You give without expecting in return. You walk away from people and situations that disturb your peace without feeling guilty. You become someone who carries both strength and softness at the same time. And this is the essence of true spiritual maturity, the ability to remain open-hearted without being easily broken. Detachment also helps you reconnect with your inner wisdom. When your mind is no longer clouded by emotional dependence, you begin to hear yourself clearly. You notice what feels right and what drains you. You sense when someone's energy is aligned with yours and when it is pulling you away from your path. You recognize when something is meant to stay and when it is meant to be released. You stop ignoring your intuition just to protect your attachments. Instead, you begin to trust your inner voice more than the noise of the world. And that voice becomes your guide toward relationships, environments, and choices that nourish your growth. With detachment, something powerful also happens. Your emotions become calmer and wiser. You stop reacting to every emotional impulse. You stop interpreting everything personally. You stop carrying emotional baggage that isn't yours. You stop replaying conversations in your mind late at night. You stop seeking closure from people who cannot even give clarity to themselves. You stop giving people power over your mood, your decisions, and your sense of self-worth. Your emotional life becomes peaceful because it is no longer shaped by the unpredictable actions of others. Detachment teaches you that you can love people while still choosing yourself. You can care about someone deeply without making them the center of your universe. You can support others without draining your own energy. You can be kind without becoming a doormat. You can give without emptying your soul. You can walk away from what harms you, even if you love it, because love without wisdom leads to suffering. Buddhism teaches that compassion begins with yourself. If you do not protect your inner peace, you cannot truly offer peace to others. Another powerful aspect of detachment is the understanding of impermanence. Everything changes: relationships, emotions, circumstances, life stages. Detachment helps you appreciate these experiences fully without clinging to them as if they must last forever. You begin to see relationships as spiritual exchanges rather than possessions. Some people come to teach you lessons. Some come to mirror your wounds. Some come to help you grow. Some come to love you for a season, and some come to stay. But none of them belong to you. Detachment allows you to experience each connection with gratitude instead of fear. You stop trying to control how long someone stays, and instead, you focus on how deeply you can grow from the experience. When you detach, you also become more present. Attachment pulls you into the past or pushes you into the future, but detachment brings you into the now. You begin to see beauty in simple moments. You enjoy conversations without worrying about what they mean. You appreciate people without calculating how much they might hurt you later. You savor peace without fearing its end. You live life with open awareness rather than constant emotional tension. Detachment makes you whole because it reunites you with yourself. You stop scattering your energy into people who do not value it. You stop violating your own boundaries just to feel accepted. You stop living through the lens of fear, insecurity, and desire. You return to your natural state, calm, aware, grounded, and confident in your own worth. Your self-respect grows, your intuition sharpens, your boundaries strengthen, your mind becomes clearer. Your heart becomes lighter. You begin to realize you were never meant to control everything around you. You were meant to master everything within you. And perhaps the greatest transformation of all is this: when you detach, you attract better. When you are no longer desperate for love, you receive healthier love. When you are no longer afraid of losing people, you create deeper connections. When you stop forcing outcomes, life begins to unfold in your favor. When you stop tolerating disrespect, only respectful people remain. When you stop abandoning yourself, the world stops abandoning you. Detachment is not an escape from life. It is an entrance into a higher quality of life. In the end, detachment does not make you cold. It makes you balanced. It makes you wise. It makes you strong. It makes you peaceful. It makes you whole. It teaches you to love in a way that frees both you and the other person from unnecessary suffering. It teaches you to live in a way where no one, not a person, not a situation, not a fear can control your inner world again. This is the heart of Buddhist freedom, the ability to walk through life with an open heart and an unshakable soul. 8. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you take your power back. One of the biggest hidden sources of emotional exhaustion is the constant habit of explaining yourself, explaining your choices, your boundaries, your feelings, your silence, your distance, your growth, your healing, your preference, your decision, even your pain. Most people don't realize how deeply this behavior drains them until they finally stop doing it. You may think explaining yourself keeps relationships peaceful or makes people understand you better, but Buddhism teaches the opposite. The more you feel obligated to explain who you are, the more you abandon your inner authority and hand your emotional power to others. Explaining yourself becomes a form of attachment, an attachment to being understood, accepted, validated, or approved. You believe that if people just get it, they will accept your decisions. But here is the truth. The people who genuinely respect you do not require long explanations. They may ask questions, they may seek clarity, but they never demand emotional justification. The ones who demand endless explanations are often the ones who feel entitled to access your energy, your time, your mind, or your heart. They feel unsettled when you pull away because your independence exposes their expectations. They feel offended when you set boundaries because your strength threatens the dynamic that benefits them. They feel irritated when you change because your growth disrupts their comfort. And so they press you for explanations, not because they want to understand, but because they want to regain control. But something powerful happens the day you choose to stop explaining yourself. You begin to realize that your decisions don't need the permission of people who do not carry your burdens. Your boundaries don't need to be justified to those who ignored your needs. Your silence doesn't need to be interpreted by those who never listened to your words. Your growth doesn't need approval from those who preferred the version of you that served them. Your healing doesn't need validation from those who contributed to your wounds. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim the authority over your own life. In Buddhism, there is a teaching that says, "Your truth does not disappear when someone else does not understand it." This is one of the deepest forms of detachment. You let go of the need to be seen in a certain way. You stop trying to manage other people's interpretations of you. You stop shaping your choices to avoid disappointing others. You stop watering yourself down so people can swallow you more easily. Instead, you begin to honor your inner compass, even if others do not understand your direction. Explaining yourself often comes from fear. Fear of being judged, rejected, misunderstood, or abandoned. But this fear dissolves when you start trusting your own intentions more than the opinions of others. You realize that misunderstanding is not the end of the world. You learn that disappointment is a natural part of life. You understand that not everyone is meant to walk with you on your path, and you begin to see that people's reactions to your choices are reflections of their own minds, not reflections of your worth or clarity. You cannot control how others interpret your actions, and trying to do so only leads to suffering. The moment you stop explaining yourself, relationships become clearer. You quickly see who respects your boundaries and who resents them. You see who trusts your judgment and who only accepts you when you do what they want. You see who values your autonomy and who values your compliance. You see who loves you for who you are and who loves you only for what you provide. This clarity can be painful, but it is precious because it frees you from illusions that kept you emotionally trapped. And something else happens when you stop explaining yourself. Your peace becomes stronger. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop writing imaginary arguments trying to justify why you did what you did. You stop carrying guilt for choices that were necessary for your well-being. You stop feeling responsible for other people's emotions, especially when those emotions are caused by their own expectations, insecurities, or assumptions. You learn to stay rooted in your truth without bending under pressure. Your inner voice becomes clearer because it is no longer drowned out by the noise of trying to impress or satisfy others. You begin making decisions from a grounded, peaceful place rather than a reactive or anxious one. Your life becomes more intentional. Your relationships become more honest. Your heart becomes lighter. You begin to feel free not because you escaped people, but because you escaped the need to prove yourself. Detachment is not just letting go of people. It is letting go of the fear of being misunderstood. It is letting go of the need to be seen as right. It is letting go of the idea that your life must make sense to everyone. Your healing journey is not public property. Your boundaries are not up for debate. Your growth is not a group discussion. Your purpose is not determined by outside commentary. When you detach from the need to explain, you begin living from your center rather than living through external approval. This does not mean becoming arrogant or closed-minded. It means moving with quiet confidence. It means trusting your intuition. It means honoring your emotional limits. It means allowing your no to be complete and your yes to be intentional. It means understanding that anyone who truly values you will respect your choices even when they do not fully understand them. And anyone who walks away because you stopped over-explaining was never truly aligned with you. The more you stop explaining yourself, the more space you create in your life for people who see you clearly without needing endless explanations, for people who trust your heart, for people who respect your boundaries, for people who support your growth even when it means changing dynamics, for people who do not punish you for evolving. These are the relationships that nourish your soul rather than drain it. Stopping the habit of explaining yourself is one of the highest forms of emotional and spiritual detachment because it breaks the chains of external validation. You begin to trust the wisdom of your path more than the assumptions of others. You begin to prioritize your internal truth more than the external noise. You begin to realize that your life is not meant to be lived as a performance for public approval. In the end, detachment is not about refusing to communicate. It is about refusing to justify your existence. It is about living from your authentic self without shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. It is about walking your path with a peaceful mind, knowing that those who belong with you will walk alongside you without needing explanations, and those who leave because you stopped explaining were simply not meant to stay. Detachment gives you your life back, and nothing is more powerful than that. 9. Your healing begins the moment you stop trying to change people. One of the most exhausting battles you will ever fight is the silent inner war of trying to change people who do not want to change. You invest your energy hoping they will treat you better, love you deeper, respect you more, apologize sincerely, communicate clearly, or finally see your worth. You keep giving them chances, explanations, patience, and forgiveness, believing that your effort will inspire transformation. But this belief, though rooted in hope, becomes the source of profound emotional suffering. Buddhism teaches that trying to change others is like trying to control the wind. You exhaust yourself fighting what you cannot grasp, and in the end, all you feel is emptiness. Healing begins the very moment you stop trying to change people and start accepting them exactly as they are. Acceptance is not approval, it is clarity. Acceptance does not mean lowering your standards. It means recognizing reality without illusions. When you accept someone's behavior without trying to mold it into what you wish it were, you finally see the truth you once ignored. You see the patterns that never change. You see the disrespect disguised as love. You see the inconsistency hidden behind promises. You see the excuses that cover a lack of effort. You see the emotional unavailability you once tried to heal. Acceptance reveals everything you were afraid to acknowledge. Trying to change people often comes from a place of attachment. You believe that if they change, you will finally feel safe, loved, valued, or complete. You tie your emotional peace to their transformation. You convince yourself that if you just say the right words, endure their behavior long enough, or become better, they will eventually meet your needs. But people do not change because you suffer. They do not evolve because you sacrifice. They do not awaken because you carry the emotional weight for both of you. Real change comes from within, and unless someone chooses it for themselves, your effort becomes another form of self-betrayal. When you stop trying to change people, something powerful happens inside you. Your energy returns. The energy you once wasted trying to fix people begins to nourish your own soul. You stop investing in potential and start investing in reality. You stop fighting battles that are not yours to fight. You stop overcompensating for people who give you the bare minimum. You stop trying to heal wounds you did not create. You stop carrying emotional responsibilities that were never meant to be yours. This shift is the beginning of deep healing because you are finally choosing yourself over the draining cycle of unrealistic expectations. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from resisting what is. When you want someone to be different from who they are, you are resisting reality. When you want someone to love you in a way they cannot, you are resisting reality. When you want someone to act with maturity they have not developed, you are resisting reality. When you want someone to change just because you desire harmony, you are resisting reality. And as long as you resist reality, you suffer. Healing begins the moment you surrender the need to change people and allow reality to be what it is. Letting people be who they are gives you clarity about who belongs in your life. When you stop trying to change someone, You see whether they naturally choose growth, respect, honesty, and effort, or whether they choose laziness, avoidance, inconsistency, and emotional selfishness. This clarity helps you decide whether the relationship nourishes your spirit or drains it. You no longer cling to potential. You no longer romanticize their better moments. You no longer ignore the patterns. Instead, you evaluate the relationship based on what consistently shows up, not on what occasionally appears. Stopping the urge to change people also strengthens your boundaries. You begin to communicate your needs without fear, because you no longer depend on their reaction to validate your worth. You stop tolerating behavior that hurts you. You stop giving unlimited chances to people who misuse them. You stop explaining the same pain to someone who refuses to understand. You stop waiting for people to become who they could be and start honoring who you are right now. This is emotional liberation. This is what it means to reclaim your self-worth. Another profound effect of releasing the need to change others is that your relationships become more authentic. When you stop forcing growth, connection, or effort, only genuine relationships remain. People who truly love and respect you will naturally rise to meet your energy. They will communicate, adjust, grow, and make space for your feelings. They will take accountability instead of blaming. They will show effort instead of excuses. But those who were in your life only because you carried the emotional weight will slowly drift away. Detachment does not chase them. It does not mourn the loss of what was never real. It simply acknowledges that letting them go is the only path to inner peace. Trying to change others keeps you stuck in emotional cycles that sabotage your growth. You keep waiting for someone to value you before you value yourself. You postpone your healing hoping they will apologize or improve. You hold on to relationships that drain you because you believe your love can transform them. But love alone cannot heal someone who refuses to confront their own wounds. Compassion cannot fix someone who is not ready for accountability. Patience cannot build maturity in someone who chooses avoidance. And your presence cannot replace their willingness to grow. Healing begins when you accept that your job is not to change people. Your job is to choose the people who do not need to be changed in order for you to feel respected, valued, and at peace. You begin to understand that protecting your energy is more important than protecting someone's ego. You realize that walking away is not failure, it is wisdom. You learn that the right people will never require you to shrink, chase, beg, or explain yourself endlessly. They will meet you where you are and grow beside you. When you stop trying to change others, you finally create space to change your own life. You turn inward. You focus on healing your wounds, strengthening your boundaries, building your peace, developing emotional balance, and creating a future that reflects your inner growth. You stop wasting energy fighting against someone else's resistance. Instead, you redirect that energy into becoming the strongest, calmest, and most grounded version of yourself. And that transformation ripples into everything you do, your relationships, your decisions, your environment, and your spiritual path. The deepest healing comes from understanding this simple truth. You cannot change people, but you can change how you respond to them. You can choose distance instead of chaos. You can choose silence instead of arguments. You can choose boundaries instead of resentment. You can choose acceptance instead of illusion. You can choose peace instead of emotional entanglement. And every time you make these choices, you take your power back. Detachment is not giving up on people. It is giving up the fantasy that your love alone can rewrite someone else's soul. It is choosing reality over illusion. It is choosing peace over struggle. It is choosing your well-being over emotional dependency. And when you finally stop trying to change people, you discover something extraordinary. The only person you were ever meant to change was yourself. And once you do, the whole world around you begins to shift. 10. When you detach from outcomes, life finally starts working in your favor. One of the most difficult forms of detachment, and one of the most powerful, is detaching from outcomes. Human beings naturally cling to specific results: the way a relationship should unfold, the way a dream should manifest, the timing of success, the behavior of others, the future they imagine for themselves, and even the path they believe they must follow. They create rigid expectations for how life should look, and when life chooses a different path, they suffer. The mind becomes tangled in disappointment. The heart becomes heavy with fear. The spirit becomes drained by the constant pressure to make life match a script it never agreed to follow. But Buddhism teaches something profoundly liberating. Suffering arises not from what happens, but from the way the mind refuses to accept what happens. The moment you attach yourself to a fixed outcome, you place your peace in something uncertain and unstable, and anything unstable eventually shakes your inner world. You begin to chase results as if your worth depends on them. You begin to fear failure because you believe it defines you. You begin to resist change because it threatens your expectations. You begin to question your path because it does not unfold exactly as planned. And slowly, you forget that life is not meant to be forced, it is meant to be experienced. Detaching from outcomes does not mean giving up your dreams or lowering your goals. It means releasing the obsession over how and when those dreams should manifest. It means trusting the process more than your fears. It means understanding that life has a wisdom that your limited perspective cannot always see. When you detach from outcomes, you shift your focus from controlling the future to engaging with the present. You stop worrying about whether something will work out, and start giving your full attention to what you can do right now. This shift transforms pressure into power and uncertainty into opportunity. When you are attached to a specific outcome, you overlook countless possibilities that life may be trying to offer. You become so focused on one door that you ignore the other 10 that quietly open behind you. You become so attached to one way of succeeding that you fail to see the better path forming around you. You become so fixated on one relationship that you overlook the deeper connection waiting for you. You become so focused on controlling the journey that you miss the lessons, blessings, and unexpected gifts along the way. Detachment widens your vision. It frees you from tunnel vision and opens you to miracles you once ignored because they didn't fit your expectations. When you detach from the outcome, you start living from your true inner strength instead of fear. You stop asking, "What if this doesn't work?" and begin asking, "What can I learn from this?" You stop chasing total certainty and start welcoming curiosity. You stop needing guarantees before taking action. You stop holding back because of imagined failures. You stop forcing timing that doesn't match your growth. Instead, you take intentional steps, stay open to change, and trust that whatever unfolds will guide you where you are meant to go. Buddhism teaches that everything unfolds through cause and effect. When you plant good seeds like discipline, clarity, patience, sincerity, and effort, results will come, but their timing and form may differ from what your mind imagined. When you cling to outcomes, you become blind to the natural unfolding of karma. You believe your effort must create a specific result at a specific time, but life often delivers outcomes that only make sense later. What feels like delay may be protection. What feels like loss may be redirection. What feels like failure may be preparation. What feels like uncertainty may be the space your soul needs to grow. Detaching from outcomes also changes your emotional life. When things don't go as planned, instead of falling into frustration or self-blame, you begin to respond with acceptance. You remind yourself this is not the end, it is part of the process. You stay calm in uncertainty because you no longer tie your self-worth to external results. You remain confident even when plans shift because your direction comes from within, not from the illusion of control. You stay resilient in challenges because you understand obstacles are not enemies, they are teachers. When you detach from outcomes, relationships become healthier too. You stop trying to control how someone should feel about you. You stop forcing connections that are fading. You stop manipulating situations to keep someone close. You allow relationships to breathe, grow, or end naturally. You trust that the right people will stay without pressure. You trust that the wrong people will leave without chaos. You trust that your worth does not depend on how someone chooses to show up. This detachment frees you from emotional dependence and creates space for real, balanced relationships. Detachment from outcomes also strengthens your decisions because you stop choosing from fear or desperation. You begin choosing paths based on alignment rather than approval. You begin chasing dreams because they spark inner joy, not because they promise praise. You begin saying no to what drains you without fearing the outcome. You begin saying yes to what challenges you without needing guaranteed success. This is what it means to live with inner authority. This is where true freedom begins. And here is the most beautiful truth. When you detach from outcomes, life often gives you better results than you first imagined. This is because your mind, shaped by fear, ambition, and past experience, can only see a small part of what is possible. But life, guided by a greater intelligence, sees the whole picture. It knows what is needed for your growth, strength, awakening, and lasting happiness. This is why some paths collapse, some people leave, some doors close, and some plans fail, not because you are unworthy, but because life is rearranging itself to guide you towards something greater. When you detach from outcomes, you begin to trust this process. You stop resisting life's flow and start moving with it. You stop panicking when plans change and begin adapting with grace. You stop fearing uncertainty and start seeing it as the sacred space where change happens. You stop searching for control and begin seeking alignment. You stop clinging to the past and step fully into the present. Slowly, life becomes lighter, smoother, and more meaningful. Detaching from outcomes does not weaken ambition, it strengthens it. You still work hard, but without desperation. You still dream big, but without fear. You still pursue goals, but without tying your worth to them. You still take risks, but without breaking under pressure. You move with purpose and with peace. You chase progress, not perfection. You trust the journey even when you cannot see its shape. This is the balance of real power. Effort without attachment, action without anxiety, desire without desperation. In the end, detaching from outcomes makes you unstoppable because nothing can break you. If you succeed, you feel gratitude. If people leave, you fail, you release. You learn. If timing changes, you adjust. Your peace stays intact because it no longer depends on the future. It is grounded in the strength of present awareness. This is the heart of Buddhist freedom. Showing up fully, giving your best, loving deeply, dreaming boldly, striving steadily, and then releasing the outcome with trust. When you master this, life begins to work in your favor. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because nothing can disturb your peace anymore. As you reach the end of this journey, understand this clearly. Detachment is not the absence of love, emotion, or desire. It is the presence of inner strength. It is the calm understanding that you don't need to cling to what disturbs your peace to feel whole. It is the remembering of a truth your soul already knows. Nothing outside you was meant to control your inner world. Every lesson points you toward one simple mastery, the mastery of yourself. Because once you master your inner world, the outer world loses its hold on you. You begin to see that most suffering was not caused by people, situations, or outcomes, but by the attachments built around them. You weren't hurt because someone left. You were hurt because you held on to who they used to be. You weren't suffering because life changed direction. You were suffering because you expected it to stay the same. You weren't overwhelmed because things were hard. You were overwhelmed because you believed difficulty meant failure. When attachment loosens, pain loosens too. Detachment doesn't make you careless, it makes you careful about where you place your heart. It teaches you that you can care deeply without losing yourself. You can love fully without clinging. You can walk away without hatred. You can wish someone well without needing them to stay. You can dream boldly without breaking if the dream changes shape. You begin to understand that peace comes not from controlling life, but from controlling your response to it. Life becomes lighter the moment you stop forcing what isn't meant for you. You stop chasing people who keep running. You stop fighting situations that refuse to bend. You stop draining yourself, trying to change those who don't want to grow. You stop holding expectations life never promised. You learn to move with life, not against it. You learn to trust the process instead of fearing it. You learn to honor your soul more than your attachments, and slowly something beautiful happens. You begin to bloom from within. You feel peace that doesn't depend on approval. You feel strength that doesn't rely on stability. You feel clarity that doesn't depend on outcomes going your way. You become someone who lives from the inside out, not the outside in. You become unshakable. When others see your detachment, they may say you've changed. What they're really seeing is that you've stopped abandoning yourself. They see someone no longer ruled by fear, insecurity, or emotional dependence. They see someone who finally knows their worth, someone who values peace so deeply that chaos no longer attracts them. You choose silence over conflict, distance over disrespect, growth over attachment, boundaries over pleasing, and peace over temporary comfort. You begin living a life that honors your inner truth instead of outside expectations. Through detachment, you discover the greatest freedom a human can experience, the freedom of not needing anything outside to feel whole. You become your own anchor, your own refuge, your own steady ground. Nothing shakes you because your stability comes from within. No situation breaks you because you no longer tie your identity to outcomes. No person controls you because you don't depend on their behavior for your worth. Detachment is not the end of connection, it is the beginning of real connection. Connection without fear, pressure, or dependence. It is the connection of two whole people, not two wounded souls trying to fill emptiness. This is the life Buddhism points toward, a life of clarity, freedom, and presence, where you move lightly, lovingly, and powerfully without being owned by what changes. Let this be your truth from today onward. Detach so deeply that your peace stays untouched, your heart stays open, and your soul stays free, no matter who comes or goes. Because the moment nothing outside you can control you is the moment you truly begin to live.